Dear beloved Creator, source of all, thank you for this growing gathering of souls who are seeing through the veil of deceptions. There are layers upon layers of them, and while we do not see them all, enough seen is enough to spur us to action. We pray for your guidance through all difficulties now. We pray for our fellows who are compromised in any way so that they may heal and join the actions we are guided to address. And in acknowledging you, beloved Creator, we are reminded that the love you give is the face of what we must consciously present in all that we do here now. And so it is.
Thank you, Charlie. Hello, my name's Ron Vrillman. I'm the old white man talking head for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. I was going to have to explain this today to one of our members, and I thought I'll just record it because there's got to be other people that don't comprehend the whole picture. It took us a while to figure it out, and there's a bunch that know it, but I don't know of anybody that's recorded it so that people can fit their pieces of knowledge into the picture and pick up what they didn't know. So it's nomenclature. Everything has actually a proper name. We call stuff we call stuff, okay? We're going to start out with the beginning as we know it. In 1775, whoever it was created the United States Marine Corps, which is a division of the United States Navy, and there wasn't even a United States yet. But that group put together that function before they even had a name or were organized. They had a navy, not very big, and that was on the sea with Admiralty as a jurisdiction. The Navy created, or the group that created the Navy created the United States Marine Corps, and we still were not the United States yet. Then there was a document, the unanimous declaration of the 13 united with a small u, not a big U, small u, states of America. They were 13 individual nations. And it was not a declaration of independence. That name came later, and the de facto, the illegitimate and illegal United States of Washington District of Columbia, Inc., started doing things and changing names. So, 1776, we have the unanimous declaration, not the Declaration of Independence. Then that bunch still didn't have a name. Then they, in 1777, got together and formed a confederation and perpetual union. Didn't have a name yet. But it was not a federation, it was a confederation. There's a difference. Look it up. It's important if you don't know. So they formed a confederation and perpetual union. Now, these were educated men. They really were. They, almost all of them, read and wrote Greek and Latin. They also spoke, most of them, at least two languages. And that's not counting all of them that were fluent in the American Indian languages. So these guys knew what they were talking about, and they knew which words to use. So they chose the words properly. Perpetual union. The first thing off the bat is they named themselves the United States of America. And upper and lower case is important. If that's not what you see, the United States of America, it's something else. It's not us. Okay? So they formed the United States of America, and they formed it with 13. And it had to be a 100% agreement on every single thing they did. And after a few years of doing that, they decided that didn't work very good. And then they decided to correct their articles of their confederation with a document that they could live and govern with. And so they put it together, and it was the final article. And they sent that document out to all 13 of the states. And when that document came back, that was the Constitution of the United States of America. They had created it. It's an apostrophe S. They own it. It is their last article of confederation. So that bunch created the United States, unincorporated corporate entity, a government service company for themselves, for themselves, because all of them were uh, nation states and individual with states' rights. And there was only like 23 responsibilities and I don't know, 15 or 20 prohibitions in that document that was really shaky. It almost did not get passed. But they got it back and it was ratified. It only took 9 to ratify it, and they were happy. So then they said, we have to get the Bill of Rights together because we promised that we were going to do that to correct what we just made. So they make the Bill of Rights. And there was a bunch more than what was presented, and what was presented was eventually pared down to what we have, the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights was made to correct the Constitution. The Constitution is actually one copy for the United States of America. That was an original. Then they had to have another original for all 13 of the states or commonwealths. And I haven't seen the bill for that service, but I've seen other bills of men that did the work of making all of those original documents. It's a job, contract. So they sent out 13. They didn't get the one back from Rhode Island until after they had already inaugurated George Washington. So Vermont was a nation state before it ever became a state, just like the other 13. The only other one to do it that way was Texas. The rest of them came in from territory. So now, when you look at the documents that they give us, it says Declaration of Independence. Wasn't what it was. That's bogus, and that was given to us by the de facto Downtown Washington District of Columbia, Inc. But that's what it is. Then they say the Constitution. Okay, I guess. However, it's just the final article of the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. It's not a big deal. And what you see at the Capitol with the glass that rolls out and the megaton bomb protection and all, it's bullshit. The preamble that's written there so prettily, it's a play pretend because there's no preamble in the document that went out to the 13 states and came back and ratified that document. There's no preamble on that. It wasn't ratified. We, the people of the United States. The United States is a 10-mile square with all of the part in Virginia cut away from it. That's what the United States is. And when you look in the Oregon Revised Statutes, it says the same thing. That's where the United States is. But people won't pay attention to what they're talking about, what they're reading, what they're seeing, and what you're hearing. And what you're hearing is not what is written. So, we, the people of the United States, is specifically those people that live and work in Washington, D.C., and that have an oath to the United States. That's who we, the people, are. We, the people of the United States. In order to perform, no, in order to form a more perfect union. Oh, come on. That's taking a lot of credit for somebody to say that. No. So we, the people, are in the military and they're in the United States. And we know where that is. It's a piece of dirt. Forts, ports, and other needful buildings. Okay. On Oregon, the Marco Hatfield Building, downtown Portland, 1000 Southwest 3rd. That building, beautiful building, all boarded up with fences around it now because they can't keep their shit together. The Antifas are going to get them and burn down a marble and concrete building. And if you can't protect your own building, then what are you doing there? You've already lost. However, long before that, as a private attorney general, just one of many, we did the research on the Marco Hatfield building. They say it's the United States Federal District Court, and they say that the General Services Administration runs it for. And so we got all the documents from their counsel, an attorney in Auburn, Washington. And she sent me email, all kinds of documents that the GSA had regarding that building. So I have all those documents. Then we contacted I think we used Fidelity Title at that time. We contacted the title company and got the trio, which is the plat map and all of the information on it and the deed and the title. And when you look at it, there's still 6 parcels of land on that square block. But the GSA says that the United States owns it. But when you look at the title and it says United States of America, and we know for a fact that there's only the United States of America and the United States. Anything other than that is not legitimate. It's color of law. They can't support the argument. There's no Bailey. It's a lie. It's fraud. So, I don't know, I think it was a year ago, August. We wrote up all the paperwork and we delivered it to them after the grand jury heard all the documents, and we filed quiet title, eviction, and foreclosure on that building. And we notified the GSA, U.S. Marshals, Department of Justice Attorney for Oregon, and Homeland Security. Everybody involved in that building. And we served the paper on them. And they got all upset at the marshal's office and forced us out of their building. They said we, the people of Oregon, had to leave. But that's illegitimate and illegal. They know it and they do it anyhow. Have you ever seen any of these pictures on YouTube? Some guy's photographing the cops stopping somebody for an infraction and getting in an argument with the driver and then taking their club or flashlight and breaking open the window and dragging the person out of the car and arresting them. Have you ever seen that kind of stuff? Whether it is legal, legitimate, called for, or necessary doesn't make any difference. That's what they do. I remember Donald Trump sitting at a table and Nancy Pelosi and some others are there, and they're filming this history in the making. And they're talking about the, what do they call it? The red flag? I think that's the name, where if the cops suspect somebody for some reason of being incapable of handling their firearms that are in their house, the cops can come and take it out of your house and keep the weapon, and then you have to prove that you're not goofy and the gun is yours. That's the law they made, and Trump signed it. So you have to understand what you're dealing with here. You're dealing with names that have a specific meaning. We are the provisional, not temporary, we are the provisional government on Oregon because we did all the steps. We knew the nomenclature and we did them. Amendment 1 to the Constitution, we have the right to assemble, among other things. And then Article 1, Section 1 of Oregon's Constitution, therefore every other constitution, due to full faith and credit, we can't have something that they don't have. Article 1, Section 1 of the Bill of Rights, we declare that all men, when they form a social compact, are equal in right, that all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And they have at all times the right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. Okay? To my knowledge, Oregon's the only place that actually formed the social compact and did it. They told us it was going to cost $9,000 for them to do the record search to find out if anybody has ever filed a social compact, Article 1, Section 1 on Oregon, since 1910. $9,000. Okay. Well, I don't think anybody's ever done it. So we're not we the people. That's not who we are. On Oregon, we're the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. On the other states, they have to be whoever they are. So now, what are you going to casually call Oregonians when you want to describe us, maybe? All of us together? That's who we are in English, just like apostrophe S shows ownership. There's a point I would like to make. People say Constitution of the United States or Constitution for the United States, and neither one of them is correct. People just don't want to pay attention. We know one is bogus because when it happened and who did it, there hasn't been any law since 1861, only color of law. So anything made after 1861 is not legitimate. Okay, here's another little point. Nomenclature. Buchanan was the last lawful president of the United States, the corporate United States of original jurisdiction that included South Carolina and Oregon. And Buchanan was there and president, and there was a Congress assembled, and there was original jurisdiction at that point. That we can prove. We can't see the documents. They won't let anybody see the documents so far. But that much we can prove. Done deal. But that means there isn't any one document called the Constitution that is an original. The original is made up of 13 originals. So they manufactured one. And people say, and the clause that makes it legitimate is we the people, the preamble. But that doesn't make it legitimate. That doesn't make it legal. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it original jurisdiction. Amendment 13, the Anti-Titles of Nobility Act, that many of us believe includes esquires from the British Accreditation Registry. However, if you read the biography of Buchanan, you find out that he was a bar attorney. It says so right there, and you're reading it. And then so I look up several different ones. Don't you love the internet? You can find all this stuff sitting at your chair. So I look it up, and yep, he was a bar attorney. However, Lincoln wasn't. There's no evidence that Lincoln was, but there is evidence that Buchanan was. But is that somebody's writing? Can they actually prove it? Or was he just knowledgeable in law with a degree from a law school, Pennsylvania or something? You got to know, and it's nomenclature. We're going up against the Oregon State Bar. And the Oregon State Bar confers JD or Esquire. I know I checked it out with them, unless they've changed, but then you can say, what did you do 5 years ago or 3 years ago? And then you get a different answer. Very much similar to Black's Law, and I'm shifting all over the place, but Pick up on this one, Black's Law. You look up de facto, and then you look up de jure, starting with Black's Law number 1, which we have, and we also have 4 and 5 and 6 and 11. And the definitions for de facto and de jure change over time. But the definitions of the Constitution and all the documents that came before it are defined in a dictionary called Bouvier, 1856. Not Bouvier, 1857, Michael. Bouvier, 1856. That defines. And in that definition, it says sovereign in all the world except here means the king and the government and so on and so forth. But here, sovereign means me and you, the body, mind, spirit, flesh, blood, soul, men and women on Oregon. Nobody else has claimed that. They don't do the work. We have to overcome Lincoln and his takeover of Washington District of Columbia with federal troops because the South seceded from their union. And the South was across the river in Virginia. That's how far away they were. Lincoln forced what he had together, needs must, but they warred. But it wasn't a war. Wars defined, and we didn't have that. Wars are not concluded by an armistice by two generals. That's what we had. What it was a coup. The bar attorneys and the military in Washington District of Columbia, that place, formed another government, but it was illegitimate and illegal, therefore de facto. And they put the de jure government of the United States aside because they had no South. They hadn't had laws since South Carolina left. And they put it aside, and it's still aside. And it hasn't been reconstituted. And people talk bullshit all over the place, but it hasn't happened. If it had happened, we would not be in the situation where we are now. This is what we have yet to do. To return to original jurisdiction, we have to get a quorum of the 33 states, 20 states, has to include South Carolina. The only one that I know of is Oregon that has complied with Article 1, Section 1 of Oregon's Constitution. Do you want me to read it again? I'll show it to you. I won't read it to you, but I'll show it to you. Yeah, that. When we have enough of those, 20, with their bona fides in order, not 6 dinglings from someplace saying that they're the provisional government and they haven't got their work done. They don't have their bona fides. They cannot prove their statement. They can't pass credentials check for a constitutional Republican form of government. That has to happen. There is no Congress assembled and hasn't, not since 1861, It doesn't exist. It's all play pretend. There hasn't been a lawful president since Buchanan. Doesn't exist. It's play pretend. And in November, when you read the Constitution, it says there will be an electoral college that will select the president. There hasn't been a legitimate electoral college since 1856 when they elected Buchanan. It's all play pretend. But the 33 several states can supply a quorum, including South Carolina. And those 20 electoral college representatives form the United States of America and make a president. We don't have any elected Congress. Hasn't been done. What we have is illegitimate, and we know it. We don't have a de jure judiciary. Doesn't exist. It's all infiltrated and corrupted by the bar, British Accreditation Registry in some form. We don't know all the secrets. But there's the how would you, nomenclature. I'll use that word again. Of all the pieces that we know of so far, and I'll stand corrected by anybody, but that's where we are. And everything that I've said, we can prove, and it's published at www.orsja.org. And I yield.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. Then he jumps out of the car, and he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, "Just shoot me then. This is what you want, just shoot me." And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.